Thank you for joining us for a Red Couch exclusive. The Red Couch is delighted to be in the lobby of the Sarasota Opera House during rehearsals for Turandot, part of their 53rd season on Florida's Gulf Coast. Sarasota Opera performs in this historic building, which has recently undergone a $20 million rehabilitation to restore the beauty of the 1920s theater while creating an up-to-date opera house for the 21st century. Sarasota Opera produces outstanding opera true to the vision of the composer to entertain, enrich, and educate not only the local community, but also from patrons around the world. Sarasota Opera attracts outstanding artists, and for Turandot, their largest production ever staged, they are featuring one of America's finest sopranos, Brenda Harris. Praised for her drop-dead gorgeous singing and performances that take the breath away, Brenda has appeared in leading roles with many of the world's most prominent opera companies and orchestras. Recent roles include Odabella in Attila, Leonora in Fidelio, Lady Macbeth in Macbeth, Donna Elvira in Don Giovanni, and the title role in Norma. Join us now on the stage of Sarasota Opera for an exclusive interview with Brenda Harris on the Red Couch. Brenda, I am so thrilled to have you on the Red Couch.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
So you grew up in Illinois on a pig farm with 400 people in your town.
Well, okay, there are legitimately 400 people on the street sign, but my husband swears that there are nowhere near 400 people. He's like, they are counting livestock, Brenda. There's no way there are 400 people actually in this town. I kind of believe it because you never see more than about 50 people at once.
Wow.
Yeah, it's beansy. There's one four-way stop.
That's small. So you started singing back in that town when you were 3?
Right. I did a lot of singing as a kid. I mean, they couldn't shut me up. But we didn't know anything about classical music. I grew up hearing country music and pop music. And I did a lot of singing with I have twin uncles. And one of them played the accordion. And we used to have these games where if we would go to picnics, family picnics, they would swing me in a blanket if I would sing. But if I stopped singing, then they'd put me down and walk away. So I had to sing to get swung. It's lore. And I mean, it happened, but you know, that's how I don't know if that has anything to do with my joy of making noise. And then I used to give little recitals. I just wasn't shy at all. My uncle would play the accordion and I would get up at like the age of 3 and sing anything I knew, anything they taught me. It all kind of went away once I became more aware, as kids are, you know, you become aware of yourself, and when I hit adolescence, I had nothing to do with it, so it came back to me later, but I think I came singing out of the womb.
So what actually attracted you to the magic of opera?
I went to college thinking that I got into a choral group in high school, and that was really ignited the whole thing about music, as I think it does for a lot of people. And then I went to college thinking I was going to be a high school music teacher, and I got into choral groups there and continued loving all of that. And then I had some faculty members who said, you know, I think you actually have a gift, and maybe you'd think about singing professionally, which I thought was ridiculous. You'd have to go to New York, right? And you can't go to New York. You have to be born in New York to live in New York. Seriously, I was terrified of the whole idea. And I auditioned for a few summer programs, didn't get into them. Or no, I'm sorry, I got into one apprentice program, and I was so clueless that I turned them down thinking, why didn't they ask me to do a role? I was literally like 21 years old and, you know, no idea. So I went home, this is a ridiculous long story, but I went home to my parents' farm in Illinois, and my grandma said, you know, they're doing auditions this weekend for the chorus at Opera Theater of St. Louis. And it's, St. Louis is literally about 40 minutes from my parents' farm in Illinois. So my uncle and my grandma drove me to these auditions, and the whole way I was sort of like, all right, I'll audition for the chorus, whatever, you know, thinking I was just way too good. I had no idea. And I got in, and the first weekend of those chorus rehearsals, I met my husband. He was also in the chorus.
Was he your voice teacher?
Well, he was just my friend, my chorus friend. He started meddling around with my voice well into the summer, and he'd been doing a lot of teaching as an undergrad. We were still in school as a TA and stuff. He's just really gifted at that. And but anyway, the first weekend I remember I came home. I had rehearsal all day, and I had a cousin who lived in the town where Opera Theater St. Louis, Webster Gross, where they rehearse. And so I spent the night with her Saturday night, and I went to rehearsal all day on Sunday, and I came home on Sunday evening, and my dad was just climbing off the tractor, and I said, okay, this is it. I am doing this forever. And my dad has a fabulous, huge, bright, big smile, and he just was beaming smile, and he just was shaking his head like, oh no, what have we done? You know, he was just like, oh no, she wants to be an opera singer. That's it. I mean, there are a million ups and downs since then. But meeting my husband, it was just super fate. That weekend was just, I could have been so many other places. I could have chosen or the universe could have chosen so many other things for me. But that was it. And then he and I decided to get married 3 weeks after we met. I know, right? We didn't tell my parents for months, and then they still kind of freaked out because they were like, you haven't known each other very long. Oh, if you only knew. And then we moved to New York about a year after that. My husband is he's a Texan, we can do it, you know, we're complete opposites. I'm a big Midwest chicken, and he just was like, no, we're going to New York and we can do it. And it was terrifying, the whole thing. For about 5 years, I probably didn't breathe. Wow. I was so terrified. I'd never ridden a city bus. Wow. I mean, some friends of ours, we went to New York. I'm telling all these hilariously, ridiculously ignorant stories on myself, but we were driving into New York City. We got a little 6x6 trailer attached to my grandma's car, which she sold us so we could move to New York. We had like 2 cents. We're driving through, and my ears are popping in. My husband said, you know, I think we're going, this is the Lincoln Tunnel, and I think we're going under the water. And I said, you can't have a tunnel under the water. That's the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. Because part of me was so terrified at the thought that I was actually in a tunnel under a river. And then we got to his friends who were letting us stay with them while we were getting acclimated in the city, and they said, yeah, the Lincoln Tunnel goes under the Hudson River. Oh my God.
Welcome to the city.
Yeah, that's how I was moving to New York. It's probably best, right? You know, just sometimes it's like deep water, here you go.
Initiation by fire.
And there was a certain element of massive confidence that came for me from the simplest things, you know, mastering the subway map and knowing how to we lived for a while when we were first there in Forest Hills, Queens, knowing how to get from Queens to New York to visit. I used to sub at churches and going to this church and just figuring things like that out. I just felt like I was, you know, the smartest person in the room, which can translate sometimes, you know, into when you're auditioning and things like that, even though you really are kind of clueless. It was helpful to me, I think.
It's a
in the big picture.
Very helpful characteristic. So I wish I had that when it comes to opera, because to be totally honest with you, I'm a little bit intimidated by opera. And I kind of felt like, okay, it's a different language and it's a whole different culture in a way. I think a lot of people feel like they have to be educated and they have to be, you know, more cultured or something. What do you think about that?
I think that's so not true, first of all. I think that the more you know about anything, the more you enjoy it, right? The more you go to a baseball game, you totally have a great time, but because you're drinking beer and eating pretzels with your friends, or at least I am. But if you know how the scoring works, and then if you go, oh, I get it, oh, that's really fun, right. And then if you know how like the pitching works, you know, and you can start recognizing pitches and you say, oh wow, awesome curve on that pitch or whatever, that's more fun. So I guess you understand what I'm saying, but the concept is, with regard to works of art, my definition of a great work of art is it's immediate and it's enduring. So I have sung, 27 productions of Mozart's Don Giovanni. And I remember the first, and it's one of my desert island operas. It's just a magnificent, incredible work. And I think I was in maybe my 23rd production. No, I don't know how many performances, right?
Right.
And I sing 2 roles in that because there are 3 sopranos actually, but 2 that I can sing. So I sung it in different capacities. But I remember I was singing Donna Elvira at this moment, and I was in her aria, which I had heard go by 8,000 times probably, and I heard something in the orchestra that I had never heard before. So I think it's like, you don't have to know a darn thing. You can look at a Caravaggio painting and go, wow, that is amazing. And you go back to that museum and you see it 37 times, and the 38th time you go, I never noticed the red was that way or this way.
Right.
So, no, it is a different language, but now, gosh, if that's a stumbling point for you, we have titles all the time, so you can follow exactly what's going on. But you know, the music carries with it such definition that one doesn't always even have to know what's exactly being said. You can feel what's happening.
Exactly. I feel like the power of opera, and I'm a complete novice, but for me, the power of opera, it's like it touches people emotionally and spiritually. How does it do that?
Now that's a question I can't answer yet. It's what draws us to it, though.
Right.
I mean, it's just such a complete thing. You know, it's acting, it's music, it's text, it's drama, it's emotion, it's the whole ball of wax.
It's a very complex art form.
It is, but at the heart of it, it's really simple. It's really big stories that with big emotions, and I think probably it's really archetypal almost all the time. Like you can go to, say, Turandot, and you can say, okay, I've never been a princess in ancient China. I've never asked anyone to have their head cut off or answer riddles. But you know, there's at the core of it, you can say, wow, that woman is a bully, and she's obviously terrified, and there's something about her. She hates men. She's afraid of men. Wow, I've had times in my life where I felt incredibly intimidated by men. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The big picture can translate so well. So I guess that's my way of trying to answer that, which is we can relate always to these gigantic emotional situations on the smallest or largest level.
Yeah, I liked what you said in an interview with Sarasota Opera when you were talking about what do you want to the audience to walk away with knowing about Turandot. And you talked about just knowing that she's a woman, and she's a woman who was fearful.
I think she's afraid.
Right?
I think she's just terribly afraid.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot more to her than that, but people who lash out, people who are bullies, we're probably bullied. We know that now psychologically. And for whatever reasons, maybe not in this lifetime, but somewhere along the way, she has become unbelievably protective, and it's translated into almost paranoia.
Right.
And sometimes that's explained, even in modern life, people see therapists for a long time to try to explain things like that. Sometimes it can be explained and sometimes it can't. And sometimes you just deal with it.
Right.
But recognizing the problem is the first thing they say, right? But I think she just is so conflicted. She desperately wants to love someone and have someone love her, and that's the thing that terrifies her most. So she lives in this horrible, conflicted prison.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this interview on the Red Couch.